For a lot of vendors, sustainability is a buzzword, but at Hitachi, it's been in our DNA for a long time. We stand at the crossroads of transformation. We've become a data-heavy world trying to leave a lighter footprint on the planet. Let's start with a jaw-dropping statistic. U.S. data centers devour a staggering 6.3% of the nation's energy. If it were its own sector, it would be 35 times larger than the U.S. transportation industry. If it were its own country, it would consume more energy than Mexico. I really believe that we have a responsibility in the IT sector to do our part to reduce emissions. Sustainability is moving from a nice-to-have to a need-to-have in the data center. 80% of our customers have already set emissions targets, and we see a movement to invest in more sustainable products and services. Over the past 12 years, we've seen top-down pressure from CEOs to go green. But for the first time, we're seeing an increased goal setting at the C-level combined with bottom-up pressure from employees. We've reached the tipping point where top-down pressure meets bottom-up pressure in many organizations. The industry uses 3 scopes from the Greenhouse Gas Protocol to calculate the scope of value chain emissions. Think of it in terms of 3 categories of emissions. Scope 1 emissions covers the greenhouse gas emissions that a company makes directly from things like powering office facilities, a factory, or the vehicles they use for sales, service, and transportation. Scope 2 emissions are indirect emissions. This is the electricity or energy that is produced on behalf of a company to power their facilities. Scope 3 emissions is where things get tricky. Scope 3 isn't about the company itself, but it looks at the emissions up and down the value chain. Is the company in control of its suppliers' emissions? Emissions-wise, Scope 3 is always the big one, and it includes things like carbon footprint from business travel, procurement, and waste and water. Circular economics isn't just about what happens inside our data centers. It's about the entire life cycle of our products. At Hitachi, we refer to this as an eternity design mindset. Let's talk a little more about indirect emissions. Scope 3 emissions means you need to take into account how the vendors you buy from source their raw materials, how they design their products, how they sell and ship them, the running of the systems, and the collection and recycling of the product at the end of its useful life. Think about this. To make a difference in your company's ESG report, you need to choose vendors who are making the right decisions regarding Scope 3. Are they manufacturing using sustainable energy or fossil fuels? Are they designing software close to the hardware without inefficient software layers, like using direct APIs, for example? Does the vendor control their own shipping, or do they ship from a generic warehouse that's heated with natural gas? Do they use electric vehicles for last-mile shipping? All of these things add up to the carbon footprint of a product, and they need to be declared based on an external ratification. Decarbonization is about more than just a product. It's about a vendor's supply chain. Hitachi storage platforms are manufactured in Japan, which produces 38% less CO2 compared to other major manufacturing locations. Have you asked your vendor where their products are manufactured? Let's go back for a second about why I'm still here after 21 years. This is our European distribution center in the Netherlands. This facility is energy neutral, meaning that all of the energy used is generated sustainably, and it was the first building of its kind to limit its use of natural resources with no use of natural gas. It's also the largest unsubsidized solar project on a single building in all of Europe. The roof is made up of over 6,000 solar panels with a capacity of 1.4 megawatts. The most important piece of information here is that our European distribution center was built in 2015, designed in 2012. We've been doing the right thing when it comes to sustainability for a long time. Let's transition now to how Virtual Storage Platform 1 impacts sustainability in the data center. Carbon footprint certification visualizes the CO2 of the circular economics of a product and assigns a number to that. This particular chart shows the CO2 value of the VSP E1090, and it includes things like the raw materials used to build the system all the way through to the shipping of the system. Each of these systems has a CO2 figure plus a nominal figure for the system in a running state. This is about measuring the CO2 of the raw materials we use to build the VSP. What if your CEO asked you today, what are you doing to reduce CO2 in our IT department? How would you answer that question? This chart shows every vendor's model, both new and old, that has been ENERGY STAR certified in the mid-range storage category. The list includes several older models from Dell Unity, PowerStore, and IBM Flash systems. The VSP E1090 is ENERGY STAR rated at 368 IOPS per watt. This is better than all other mid-range systems, with some scoring as low as 7 IOPS per watt. I like to think of IOPS per watt as miles per gallon for a car. If we did that comparison, the VSP E1090 would get 360 miles per gallon, compared to the Pure Flash Array XL's 40 miles per gallon. So what do we mean by eco-friendly infrastructure? And what kind of technology do we develop to reduce CO2 emissions, power, cooling, and floor space in the data center? This is important because 80% of the life cycle CO2 emissions of a storage platform are related to its use after it's sold. What you buy and how you use it matters. If we look at the last 8 years, we've reduced CO2 emissions by 30 to 40% between each generation of the VSP portfolio. There are a few key technology pillars we leverage to reduce CO2 emissions. The VSP1 platform leverages patented technologies that lower greenhouse gas emissions. Enhanced data reduction dynamically switches between inline and post-processing to optimize power consumption, and it reduces CO2 emissions by allowing customers to store more user data on the capacity they purchase. That reduces power, cooling, and CO2 emissions in the data center. And lastly, with storage virtualization, we can apply the same data reduction rate to existing storage systems by virtualizing them behind the VSP. Modern storage assurance delivers non-disruptive upgrades to next-generation technology for VSP1 systems. The upgrade minimizes waste by swapping controllers and letting users continue to use their existing media. This process also saves the energy that would be used to power up 2 systems in parallel for a time-consuming data migration project that would take months to complete. The data you see here represents the outcome of a recent customer engagement. We're able to validate the yearly environmental and economic impacts of an eco-friendly infrastructure. We collapsed the entire footprint of the data center infrastructure by 50%. The impact of all of the factors you see here combined will deliver $1.4 million in savings for this customer. Let's look at how a few of our customers are tackling the journey to sustainability. Magyar Telekom has been able to replace more than 1,200 disks across 3 racks with 20 NVMe drives on a VSP E1090 single rack. That's delivering the same 500 terabytes of capacity in a much smaller physical footprint. Turk Telekom has reduced their total footprint from 23 cabinets to 9, saving considerable space in their data center and reducing their power and cooling requirements by around 60%. In addition to helping Infosys meet their ESG goals, the VSP 5600 is running their applications at least 10 times faster than their SLA requires, and 70 to 90% faster than their previous generation storage. Sustainability is a pursuit that never ends. But if you need to jumpstart or accelerate your journey, here are some things you should think about. When you choose a vendor, ask yourself, are they certified by an independent third party for the things that matter? Sustainability is rooted in accountability. Let's partner with those who back their claims with certification. Is your current vendor just a supplier, or are they actively engaged in helping you reduce costs? Sustainability isn't a solo act, it's a symphony. Let's harmonize our efforts and orchestrate efficiency. Have you ever wondered where your storage is made? How it's disposed of or repurposed? Is your vendor committed to lowering CO2 emissions at every stage of the life cycle of their product?
At Hitachi Vantara, our sustainability commitment is rooted in our DNA. We're in this for the long haul, and we're always innovating to bring a sustainable future closer to today.